It's time.
It's time.
And now, it's time for Herman and Sharron.
I love you. Thank you for joining us. We have a special, unbelievable, beyond anything you can imagine story today. You need to hear this.
We have Paul Jensen with us. He's a business executive for Microsoft Xbox Live. He previously was vice president of Sony Pictures Digital in Hollywood, California. Xbox Live. Mm-hmm. Wow. Our grandsons would love you.
That's right.
It's a fun job.
I bet.
They are definitely hooked. But this book, Over the Edge into Truth, we're going to have a website, and you will have an opportunity to read one of the most unbelievable miracle stories. And he's sitting here because the Lord wanted you here. Mm. I mean, it is just an amazing story. It happened in California, a place called Joshua Tree National Park. Never heard of it before until I read the book. So apparently it's a well-known area.
Yes.
And it's kind of a setup that you need to give us before we walk into this story of how all of this took place and what brought you there.
Sure.
Because you're an adventurous kind of guy.
I am an adventurous kind of guy. How far back would you like to go? Because it's a long story.
Kind of give us a little capsule of, you're very athletic.
Sure.
And so,
okay.
The reason you were there, it's something you wanted to do.
Yes, it's yes. I mean, when I was growing up as a child, I was very Christian. I was in the Christian church in a large way, and I actually felt called to be a missionary when I was very young, 12, 13 years old. In fact, I was one of those kids who had read the Bible cover to cover by the time I was in 5th grade.
Wow.
Which I just felt fun to do.
So were you a child genius?
No, far from it. But I was certainly a driven individual, I'd say, as a kid. But eventually I moved from California to Ohio. It was a difficult move in high school in the freshman years, and I actually walked away from that path just for peer pressure. And instead I sought acceptance in the world. And that acceptance kind of moved my path down for many years, probably a decade and a half, where I was immersed in the world, where I left God, and TVs, movies, and music replaced God in terms of molding who I was and who I was going to be.
How did you get into that field?
Well, actually, that field I got into later after the miracle.
Okay.
I was actually just a businessman or a business executive throughout this time after I graduated college and got married, of course. But I only came back to God literally 3 weeks before I went on vacation. And so I found out that the fact that I came back to God, went down to vacation in Palm Springs. I had been to Joshua Tree back in 8th grade. It was my last kind of Christian retreat, and I wanted to go back to, I guess, kind of reconnect with my lost Christian soul in a way.
Okay, now who came with you at this time?
So my wife, my 7-year-old and my 7-year-old son, my 4-year-old daughter, my sister, and her husband, and their 2 kids.
So they all acquiesced because you wanted to be there.
I want to do it. They all said, okay, great, let's go do it. And Paul wants to do it. Let's go. Fine, Paul, drag him out there. I'm trying to rally the people together. So I went out there, and we went and hiked the desert floor. And Joshua Tree is it's known for rock climbing. It's a high desert, and it's a beautiful, stark, very barren. It looks almost like nothing any place in the world. And I've been most places in the world, and this looks like nothing.
What is it close to?
It's about an hour and a half outside of Palm Springs.
Okay.
And it's gorgeous in a very stark way. But there's piles of boulders. Looks like 4 to 5 foot boulders. They're just piled on top of each other to create boulder piers. And we hiked the desert floor, and we saw, and that was great. And I said, okay, I want to go, because I'm an adventurous guy. I want to take my son up and say, let's go climbing, Jake, because I was here to climb. I'm adventurous. I got to prove, and I got to show how strong or how great I am, right? Yeah. And so went up bouldering. It was safe enough to take my 7-year-old son. So I had him go in front of me, and we just bouldered up, 3, 5 foot tall rocks.
Just like going up steps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we made it eventually 75 feet up off the desert floor. We're up here. My rest of my family and my sister and brother-in-law, their
way
children
down here.
Way down there. They're on the desert floor. And when I'm on there in that, up on that 10 by 10 flat area, because I stopped, and I ended up stepping on a step rock. It was a step rock that was about 2 feet wide, but it came to a point, a real sharp point.
Yeah.
And
Let's hold it right there, because in reading the book, and you'll get your copy when you go to that website, your brother-in-law down below
yes,
is sensing something.
correct. When I'm on that rock, when I'm deciding, hey, should I take my son higher, because I'm kind of stepping on a rock just to view, my brother-in-law is feeling a sense of evil come over him, and a sense of somebody's going to fall. And of course, you know, when you have a couple kids there, 2 4-year-olds and a 7-year-old, you kind of go, wow, it's the children.
Now,
So,
he's not the kind of guy that
Not at
ever
all.
Senses something like this
No,
on a
he's-
regular basis.
No, he's a college professor. He's very,
Yeah.
he's a very straight,
Low-key.
very low key,
Yeah.
very straight, very solid individual.
So this is unusual
It was,
for him.
It was like a panic attack almost came over him, like a really big sense of evil, where he kept saying, please get down, kids, get down.
Yeah.
And my wife was making fun of him, saying, oh, you know, stop being such a wimp, come
Yeah.
on, what are you doing? And he's like, no, get down. So they kind of said, fine, they got down for Todd, but the feeling didn't go away. And right then Todd looked up, because he could see my son way up there, 75 feet up, and goes, oh no, it's Jake. And right then, at that moment, is when I was actually letting myself down off of that 18 inch to 2 foot high rock, where
And how many feet are you above?
I'm 75 feet up
75 feet.
on a nice flat area. And I was letting myself step down off that rock. I felt my feet get swept out from me, where all of a sudden I was staring at the ground. My head and my feet were the exact same level, about 4 feet off the ground. I remember staring at the ground going, how did I get here?
So you didn't trip over anything?
I didn't. There's nothing to trip. It's either if I was going to slip off that rock, because I had all my weight on that one right foot, I was either going to slip, and I'd either slip and hit the back of my knee, or I'd slip and hit the front of my knee. But no way, and because I've done a lot of sports in my entire life, would I ever slip up and be staring at the ground 4 feet up. And the weirdest part is I could see my head maybe, but why were my feet? It was like somebody or something ripped me up and held me up high. And I remember staring at it. I had enough time to sit there and think, what am I doing up here? And then I dropped. And I still have one scar here in my hand here. I have a scar here, so all I did, I had my 2 hands on the ground and my knee on that rock. And I hit both those at the same time, and I yelled, ow. Really loud, ow.
But you really cut...
And what I did is I got up and I looked at my right knee, and it was split open
Yeah.
underneath my kneecap. It was fairly bloody.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, this isn't good. And so I'm 75 feet up, and I have my 7-year-old son looking at me with bright eyes, and I go, ooh. So we bolted up a real nice area, but
So you wanted to move away from this...
well, I wanted to get my son down, because
Okay.
I realized I'm not going to help him. I can't help him anymore. So I went to the side, not the side I climbed up, the simple side, but essentially a severe drop off. And I looked at and I yelled down. And I was surprised the fact that my brother-in-law was looking more at the top of his head. So I realized I was higher than I thought. And I said, Todd, why don't you get up here and get my son down? And right then I started feeling dizzy. And so
Because of the loss of blood.
No, I don't know why.
Okay.
I mean, I think the nurse at the hospital said there may be some nerves or something underneath the kneecap. I'm not really sure. But I ended up stepping far away from that edge. And I put my hands on my knees and put my head close to the ground. My head was about this off the ground, thinking if I pass out, I'll just collapse. And I'll collapse well away from any edge, and I'll just be safe. I did pass out. Now, I have to get, now the story switches to my sister and my wife, because I was passed out. But what ended up happening was I did fall off of that cliff. But I didn't just fall off or just kind of roll down kind of simple. My wife and my sister said it looked like somebody took a rag doll and just threw it off the side of a cliff, because they saw me doing essentially a dead somersault in air. And they saw me fall from 75 feet up. So they saw me fall 4.5 stories. And just at the very landing point, now remember, they're on the desert floor, they saw me land about 30 feet up. So they just missed the actual impact, but they heard this humongous
Bam.
wham. And my wife and my wife and my sister let this huge scream out. And they went taking up to go climb 30 feet up the rocks to get to me, thinking that I'd be dead.
Take me back to